Morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's been a while since we had some football around here, but I'm excited to get going. Um, Many of you know this was purposeful for us. We typically start spring football towards the end of February, but with all the that was going on, it made sense for us to first and foremost have a bigger training period for our student athletes in the winter with so many disruptions, so many things going on, and guys coming back off of surgeries and the uncertainty of what we're going to do. We just gave ourselves a little bit more lead time for spring football. Pushed it back. It was great for us. We got some guys back that normally wouldn't have been able to participate. Still have a good chunk of guys that are post post surgeries, et cetera, that may trickle in to being involved. So we'll start out with a few guys still not involved, but I'm not going to worry about that list right now. Hopefully by the end of spring, we'll have the majority of the team involved in some capacity. But I think this worked out really well for us. Our guys are excited about it, and it'll be good to get back on the field. I will be participating in the NFL draft on the NFL Network. I will leave tomorrow early in practice, so I'll miss Thursday's practice, and due to county regulations, I'll miss the weekend as well, and I'll be able to rejoin the team. I won't be too far away, obviously. I'll be able to watch everything that we do, stay in constant communication with our coaches. But it's a positive thing for our program for me to be involved with the NFL Network. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm excited for our guys that are in the draft this weekend. Could be anywhere from 5 to 7, possibly 8 even being drafted. So excited about for those guys and their families, and looking forward to an outstanding weekend of Stanford football and NFL draft. So we'll open up for questions.
First question will go to Rusty Simmons. Rusty, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. I was going to ask about the draft, about Davis Mills. Just in general, what kind of pro career do you see him having?
Well, as many of you know, I try to be as objective as possible, and not just, I root for these guys all the time, but as far as my evaluations go, they're born from years of doing this as a profession, 10 years in the NFL, and they've been doing this for a long time, and comparing both people in the draft and people that have gone before. And for Davis's skill set, just his skill set, his athleticism, his accuracy, his arm strength, his quick decision-making. Yes, everyone would love for him to have another season or at least 6 more games, right? Difference between him playing 11 and 17, which is 2 other guys that are high up in the draft only played 17 as well. You'd love to have, some of those plays back that, are just, youth and fewer snaps. But I think Davis is an NFL starter. He's got the makeup mentally, he's got the makeup physically. And those handful of bad plays in his 11 games are understandable. But then when you see the ceiling and go back and watch that Washington State game from a year ago, you watch the UCLA game with a couple of bad plays in there, but you watch the way he just dominated that game. He's best player on the field. And that happened multiple times this year. You really saw, wow, this guy looks like he could be on an NFL team right now. And I think a lot of NFL people have seen that. Some people have been surprised because they didn't hear his name all year nationally. And, I initially got the question, gosh, why is this guy coming out? He only played, a few games this year and only 11 starts in his career. But it's not necessarily an East Coast bias thing necessarily. What it was is we just started late and played half as many games as everybody else in the nation. So it didn't have the stats comparable to other guys, didn't have the notoriety. And then once the scouts and coaches and everyone started really watching the film and evaluating his talent and ability, that's why he went from people saying, he's a 5th round draft pick to, wow, this guy's probably going in the 2nd round, to, gosh, maybe somebody will trade up or trade back to late in the 1st to get him. So people see his ability, see his ceiling, know that he's got a chance to be a guy on the field, not just on the team, but on the field for an NFL franchise in the near future.
This may be impossible to project, but if he had a handful more games, do you think he'd be in the conversation with those top 5 quarterbacks in the draft that we keep hearing about?
Yes.
Yeah. Right on.
No question about it.
Thank you.
Next question will go to Jacob Rayburn. Go ahead.
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the one-time transfer rule change and how it could possibly benefit Stanford in terms of parents and recruits looking at Stanford as a stable environment, but also obvious the flip side of competing against schools that every year probably can get transfers with proven playing experience.
Well, like many college football coaches, we've known it was on its way. Just became official. My initial response was a great line in a movie, for the first Jurassic Park movie. Well, Samuel Jackson just says, "Hold on to your butts." Right. I think that's just where we are. The instability year to year for roster management, just purely speaking as a college football coach, is unnerving. The potential for student athletes to hopscotch around the country is unnerving, and not just because we want to, know our team, et cetera. Studies also show those that transfer, in particular, more than once, have a tough time graduating. I'm in this thing to be a coach and a mentor, and to help guys start their adult lives. And this gives me some anxiety for those guys that are chasing dreams, which for many of them is not going to be a reality, and end up costing themselves a college degree. Now, the focus will continue to be on quarterbacks, right? Highly talented quarterback that can't play one place or is back up one place and goes another place and becomes a superstar. We all understand that. We've seen that multiple guys in the draft, first round, the last couple of years, that's been their case. I understand that. It's a fact that there are thousands of people already in the portal, with no place to land. There are going to be a lot of those student athletes that are going to be in the portal because they think their grass is greener someplace else, and they don't even find grass. So that's what I'm anxious about. As far as Stanford's concerned, we'll see how much it affects us. I think our process of coming to Stanford is not the same as other places or any place else. Our student athletes and their families are coming to Stanford for a reason. The way we recruit, I think, is we recruit with honesty. We don't make promises that we won't keep. So we tell our guys they're going to earn their spots here, as well as earn an unbelievable degree. Never promised anybody that they're going to play and start as a freshman. It's happened a couple of times, but we've told them all, hey, you've got a chance, but you have to earn it. So hopefully those freshmen and sophomores that have to be second string knew that going in and will work their way to get back to the top. Much like Christian McCaffrey and some of these other superstars that we've had, Bryce Love, Andrew Luck, redshirted for a year. So we've had a lot of great players that understood what it took coming in, and didn't jump ship when maybe other people in their ears were asking them to, and it worked out for them. So I don't know how much it's going to affect Stanford, whether it's guys leaving or guys coming. Transferring into Stanford is not the easiest thing in the world. We've gotten 2 grad transfers ever, and they were not the easiest processes to go through. But undergraduate transfers, they have to be so great coming out of high school to even be considered. They have to do so well academically at their current universities to be considered. So that's a small eye of the needle that I will see if anybody can thread. So we're not counting on undergraduate transfers coming in. It may happen. That would be awesome, you know, especially if we're ever in need of one. And hopefully we'll have very, very few ever that leave this unbelievable place called Stanford University.
And a very quick related follow-up. Do you expect Josh Picola to play for Stanford this year?
We're in a process there. We'll see.
Thanks.
Next, let's go to John Wilner. Go ahead, John.
Dave, thanks for doing this.
Sure.
Could you connect the dots for me between what happens on draft weekend for the Pac-12 and what happens on signing day for the Pac-12 and hence on the field? You know, it seems like it's a little bit of a cycle, right? Each kind of self-reinforces the other.
I think I know what you're asking. I'll answer. First of all, great to see you, John. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Same deal.
So I'm guessing you're talking about the in comparison to other conferences.
Well, yeah, I probably wasn't as clear as I could have been, but just the impact that draft success is having these days on recruiting, because it seems like, you know, with social media especially, you know, it's so much more easy for the schools to make their pitches to the kids. And so if you're doing well in the draft, you know, like the SEC has done, for instance, it seems like makes for a better sell to recruits.
Yeah, in some ways it's positive. In some ways it's kind of sad that some of the biggest selling points for recruiting, and it's part of our recruiting process, but it's not the majority like it is other places, is that some places are selling recruiting or selling the NFL draft so hard that it feels like they're trying to get them out of the school before they ever get them into the school. I want them to come to Stanford and enjoy themselves, and if that's a possibility for them down the road, great. But you are very, very right. The process of what happens this weekend will be in the minds of recruits, right? You know, Davis Mills goes late first, early second, and Paulson Debo goes second, and who knows about Walker Little, late first, early second. I mean, that's what their abilities are. So you get 3 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds, and we'll see what happens to Simi Fehoko and the rest of our guys. And those become great pitches for us, you know, especially for us saying, hey, look at us. I mean, the only guy that left technically early was Simi Fehoko. So a lot of these guys are either have their degree or 1 or 2 classes away from their degree and their NFL draft picks. So for us, that's like a huge selling point. Like, these guys are walking in the NFL with legitimate opportunities to start, and they have a Stanford degree. Those are huge. Those are powerful things for us. And so, yeah, that is that cycle of, you know, if you want great players to come into your program, you have to show them that you can help great players improve and live that NFL dream. And in particular, with our case, the NFL dream with an unbelievable degree. So, yes, those things are tied together. We try to make sure that's not our only pitch, our biggest pitch, because we have so many unbelievable things that happen on our campus, our summer internships, the connections our guys have, so many guys that we have that are entrepreneurs and starting their own companies, and all those really cool things that have to do with being on campus is a bigger pitch for us. But at the same time, we also finished last year with 36 guys on active guys on NFL rosters, which was the most in the conference. And that surprises some people too. So yes, more than USC, yes, more than UCLA, yes, more than Washington, yes, more than Utah. So yes, that's a recruiting pitch for us also, to talk about your guys that are in the NFL, as well as all the great things that happen here on campus.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next question will go to Kyle Kinsing. Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, you know, with everything that's happened in the past year, all the adversity you guys had to work through just to get through a season, you know, we saw the photo of the park practice in Bellevue and that sort of thing. How do you feel like the past year has sort of shaped the approach the guys are ready to take, you know, jumping into spring now?
Well, you hope, I hope that lessons learned remain learned. And the biggest lesson from last year was just adjustability. you can't be static, right? You say, well, if this doesn't happen, then I don't know if I can be at my best. We couldn't afford that, right? Because I mean, we were living day to day. Where are we practicing? What are we doing? And sending out messages the evening before. Say, okay, we finally got tomorrow nailed down. Here's what we're going to do. So our student athletes, as well as our entire staff, they were ready to change on a moment's notice and still be at our best. So not letting the circumstances dictate our effort or our enthusiasm. So hopefully that continues to be with our students, our student athletes. In particular, we're not completely clear of all this stuff. We still have to do testing. We could have a day where someone has a false positive, and before we get it cleared up, we have to start practice. So, hey, guess what? You were playing that linebacker spot. Well, today you got to shift over to play this linebacker spot because so-and-so's not here today. Hopefully we'll be back tomorrow, right? That's just we have to remain adjustable, and we can't ever use that as an excuse not to be great, right? Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what happens, regardless of what's thrown down our path, we have to fight through it together and be successful. So hopefully that remains from all of those circumstances from last year, because that's what our guys did probably as well as anybody in America. I would say at the top of the list would probably us and San Jose State, that had to change locations, deal with all the little things that went on in our county, and still be able to have student athletes going to class and participating, and for us to go on a 4-game win streak at the end of the year, and for San Jose State to have that undefeated regular season was just unbelievable.
And you mentioned San Jose State winning their conference and as strong as you guys finished, but then the basketball team, winning national championship after having been away from home for so long. Do you feel like those circumstances sort of led to all that success?
Well, I have a phrase that I give our guys every once in a while. I say typically everybody who's successful has scars, right? Whether individually or collectively successful, right? A company will have a difficult, rough patch where they have to make some adjustments, some changes. Steve Jobs, his life and career, all the things that he fought through to become who he was. And but every NFL player, typically had a difficult time. Something's difficult. So that's the unanswerable question: is would you have been successful without that trial? It's impossible to answer. What Tara Vanderveer did with that club was unreal, because we were gone for 3 weeks and they were gone for 2 months, and to remain dedicated to each other. And you hear her talk about it now. There were really, really low moments where she says, "I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we can continue this. I don't know if we can. I don't know if we're going to have a finish. We're going to finish the season. We're not going to make it to the Pac-12 championship game." Or to the Pac-12 tournament. So, but that process made them stronger, made them closer together, and probably gave them that edge to handle a couple of nail biters at the end of the year. Two of the biggest games and two of the biggest games in Stanford women's basketball history were tight games, and our student athletes didn't flinch. They'd been through so much and worked so hard to get there. They handled the toughest moments. So, you know that there's some part in it that you had to fight through something to get there, and it makes you stronger and more resilient once you do get there.
Next, let's go to Dave Kiefer. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, hi, Coach. I had a couple of questions just about the quarterback position. I guess first of all, is there a front runner, say between Tanner and Jack, maybe? And I'm also curious about how Ari Patu, how his spring is going to shape up. Like, is that a possibility where he can work for playing time in the fall? Normally, you wouldn't do that with a freshman quarterback, I suppose. And then also Isaiah Sanders, what his role might be for this year.
Great. Really proud of this group. It took us 20 minutes to get to an open quarterback battle, which is awesome. Proud of this group. Dave, first and foremost, don't believe in front runners. In order for it to be a true competition, we don't have a returning starter if we did have a returning starter, he would be the front runner. Right now, we don't. We have two guys at the top of the list, and that being Jack West and Tanner McKee. But we'll rotate those guys pretty evenly. We'll still continue to watch and push and evaluate the other quarterbacks, so that they're at their absolute best, and see if they can get into the competition. We'll see. But we have two guys at the top of the list that'll be pretty even throughout spring. I don't anticipate making any kind of announcement at the end of spring. I anticipate this going into training camp. Both guys have proven themselves. I thought I got to give a lot of credit to Jack West. Just a difficult game a year ago, home game against UCLA. Nothing like how he practiced. It was a rough day, right? We've all had that one outing, whether you play golf or tennis, where you just walk off the field and say that wasn't me. And for Jack to come back and really play well, he played really well against Oregon last year, with no notice. Forget about short notice. There's no notice. And proud of the growth that he's had in maturity, and Tavita Pritchard's done an outstanding job working with him. And I'm excited to see Jack go out there and compete. Tanner McKee, same thing. Hey, you're along for the ride, man. This is going to be fun. This is going to be great. Oh, by the way, you're also going to play this first game too. So the short notice for both those guys went out there, next to the offense, and had to stay ready all year because of all the COVID stuff. They had to be ready to go at any moment, even though they didn't get an opportunity anytime after that. It was great to see those guys prepare for this opportunity. So Isaiah Sanders, starting with Isaiah, just one of our two grad transfers we've ever gotten. Isaiah has come in and really won the team over with his effort and his enthusiasm. He's an unbelievable teammate. He's got great leadership ability, as you would expect, right? My dad was an Air Force man, and Isaiah's an Air Force man, and he's come in and really, really done a great job. And we'll continue to find roles for him, not just as a runner, but I think he brings us something. So we'll continue to look at his role, regardless of who the starting quarterback is. We like what Isaiah brings to the table. Ari's got a lot to learn, as you would imagine. We're so excited and so grateful to our provost and our administration for taking a look at this and bringing in people early. He's doing a great job in school, and is really enjoying being here. We'll see how it goes for him. He's a little banged up just the beginning of spring, so as spring goes, he'll be able to do a little bit more. Don't anticipate him getting into the mix, especially during spring. And then we'll see what happens at training camp. Love to have him learn a whole bunch as we put him under the fire in practice. Hate to throw him out there earlier than he needs to be out there, but he's a bright kid. He's a talented young man, and which we think has a high ceiling. So we'll see how that process goes. But early on, he's just got to learn. He's got so much to learn, but we're excited that he's here.
All right, next question will be Troy Clardy. Go ahead, Troy.
Hey, Coach, good to see you as always. Two things. One, and maybe kind of building along those lines here a little bit, what's at stake this spring? What answers would you like to have by close of business May 22nd that you might not necessarily have right now?
The end of spring for me so much is the temperature check. Where are we? The beginning of spring, it's the same thing, right? Okay, where are we at the beginning of spring? Who's had a great offseason? Who's bigger, faster, stronger? Who has improved in some way, shape, or form from the last time we saw these guys on the field? And then who has a ways to go? And then take that temperature again at the end of spring. So what I'd love to see at the end of spring is continue to see the leadership rise, which I think it's already started certain spots. Guy like Thomas Booker, who's voted a captain last year, being even more vocal, because we lost some great leadership on both sides of the ball, and really watching these guys continue to step up. That's what I'm excited to see on the field. Hey, we've had so many injuries on the defensive side. Getting some of these guys back and getting a glimpse of them, even if they're just doing the limited roles, right? We're not going to try to kill anybody that's coming off an injury, but we'd love to see them get on the field, at least get through some individual, go through some drills, We're talking about guys like Ricky Miezon, which we think has just such a high ceiling. And we've just played the last 2 years without him, and knowing that he's got a chance to be outstanding. Jacob Manga-Farrar in that same boat. Two guys we think have a really good chance to come back and really, really impact this football team. But also encouraged about what Levani Damuni came and did last year, leading us in tackles, and seeing him take that next step. So that's just one position, but it's kind of all over the place. Those guys that have been out. Loa Kafusi is finally healthy. Excited to see him get on the field. It's been really 2 years since we've seen him be that big, athletic young man that we know he's got a chance to be. At the same time, Toby Umera. So I just mentioned 4 guys that we think in some way, shape, or form are going to impact this football team that we didn't have last year. But once again, guys coming off injuries. By pushing this back, the one thing that we had to be really, really cautious of is now we're kind of buttoned up against the beginning of summer. Usually we finish April 15th, April 16th, something like that. The guys have a long time before we start training in June. Now there's that quick turnaround. So we're going to be really smart. We're not going to tackle a whole bunch. We're going to really work on the focus or work on and focus on our drills and our skills and our 7-on-7 and some of the competitive things as a team. But really focus on guys getting better. On the offensive side, we've got some young guys that we think are going to impact this team that didn't have a chance last year. A couple of young running backs, a couple of young receivers. So we're excited to see those guys take the next step. So there's a lot of things. By the end of spring, I want to see where we are, and on the defensive side with all those guys missing, and some of the uneven play on the defensive side. Hey, really putting the pressure on. Hey, we're not putting pressure on you for learning the entire playbook, right? We want to do what's right, be in the right spot, make the plays you're supposed to make, and build confidence from there. So that's kind of what we're looking at as we get towards the end of spring.
Second thing, what do you enjoy most about doing your work with the NFL Network for the draft, and what's been the coolest moment for you on that set so far?
Yeah, so what I enjoy, it's really interesting. And for my first few years doing it, people kept saying, "Are you doing that because you're getting back in the NFL? You're just like keeping those contacts?" I said, "Absolutely not. What my time, in particular at the Oakland Raiders, did for me, it didn't just make me appreciate the draft. Working with Al Davis made me fall in love with the draft. I love the process. All 32 teams have hope and excitement. All 32 fan bases. We're going to get better. Every single draft pick is like, this is the beginning of their lives. Like, this is like the best day in the entire calendar of the NFL. It is the best day for everybody. Everybody has a chance. And especially to be on set and to be in that environment. And I'm so happy that fans are going to be there. The energy and excitement, it is tantamount to a football game, especially a football game that you're winning by 20 points, right? That's that feeling that everybody has. That's really what I love about it. I love the process. I love looking at guys, and it also helps me as I watch all these, because I'm just doing the first round, so I'm doing all the really good players, but I'm also watching their offenses and watching the defenses they played against. I'm getting different ideas. I think that helps me expand and grow, and I get a chance to sometimes call. So sometimes I feel like an NFL scout, because I'll call someone and say, "Hey, I'm just looking at your guy. What can you tell me about him?" Right? I talked to Gary Patterson about his safety. That's going to be a first round draft pick, so I got some inside information there. So to know a little bit more about these guys and get into the process is just a lot of fun. It's something to be part of. And by the time we get even through, it's a long process. We get to the 32nd pick and we do that sign off. All of us are still kind of jazzed because it's so great. But the cool moments, it's really hard to say. To be on set when any of our guys get drafted, from Andrew Luck and David DeCastro, that the first one that I did, to all of our guys that have gone in the first round, to Josh Garnett, to Andrus Peat. It's anytime anybody gets drafted, it's great. But when I'm there on set on TV, and I feel so proud to have played my part in that young person's life to get to that point, right? To watch Solomon Thomas and Christian McCaffrey both go in the top 10, and to know first and foremost that I didn't screw them up. But just gave them an opportunity to grow and be great because they're special players and special people. That's just, especially the way that I do my job, which I know I have a lot of guys that are like me and maybe some that aren't. As I said earlier, I see my job. Yes, I'm a football coach, but I'm a mentor for young people, and to be a part of someone's process to live their dreams. There's really not much to compare for it professionally.
We have time for two last ones. We'll start with Jacob Rayburn and then finish with John Wilner. Go ahead, Jacob.
Coach, I was curious, how do you plan on handling recruit visits this summer? And given obviously the unique circumstances of this past year with how long the dead period lasted, was there any discussion, has there been any discussion about only using unofficials leading up to January as usual, or making an exception this year for officials?
Great question. And you and I have traversed this road conversationally before. We are seriously looking at kind of having a one-time deal here and really looking at official visits this spring, this June. We've gone a year plus now without people walking on our unbelievable campus, and it's too hard to try to just do it unofficially. So we are looking at making it official, doing some official visits. We still have an academic bar that we need to set, and this has been a great class. A lot of our recruits have done what we've asked them to do academically, setting their senior schedule, doing enough to get early applications, starting those applications. And that's kind of be the bar for us to make sure that we are not just bringing in anybody and everybody. That's never been the Stanford way. We need those that are on course to get here academically. Those are the ones that we'll try to bring. And not to say that, someone can't make it down the road. But as far as June's concerned, we only have a couple of small windows between, after commencement and then by the end of the period that we can host people. So we are seriously looking at that, and you'll start hearing more about that in the near future.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll finish up with a question from John Wilner. Go ahead, John.
David, a quick question about the rules committee. It seems like you all have gotten, targeting addressed and overtime now addressed. What is the next big challenge as you see it for the rules committee and the sport in general?
One of the things I like about the rules committee is we've got such great people, Ty Halpin and Stephen Shaw in particular, that work really hard at looking at the game and not necessarily anticipating, but responding to what happens. Right, we're still in the midst of this feigning injuries deal. It's a dead cat that nobody wants on their front door. Right, everybody wants to stop. And gosh, who makes that call? The game day officials, they can't do it. It's not fair. It's not right. They have to stop the clock if anybody is down. But where we landed right now, and which is an evaluated process to see how it goes, is essentially it's like after the game, if any staff feels like someone was feigning injuries, right? Because the really egregious ones, you can see it, right? Guy gets a signal and just hits the deck. They can appeal to Steve Shaw's office, and he will kind of bring all parties to the table, review the film, and communicate with league commissioners and athletic directors and head coaches to hopefully curb this black eye on our sport. It's an embarrassment to our sport. So that's kind of the thing that we're still dealing with. I think we feel great about where we are overtime wise. The helmet-to-helmet contact, it's always under review. We are in constant communication with the NFL and what they're doing. Our penalties aren't the same, but our processes are very similar to what we're looking for. So I think we made it better last year with the blindside blocks. So fewer of those hits where guys don't anticipate it coming and hitting above the shoulders. So those have gone back down. So I think we're doing a really good job, but we can't ever take our feet off the gas pedal. Every year we have to look at everything, and first and foremost, always start with player safety. So that's been a fun group to be with. We've had some difficult conversations, but at the same time, I think we've made the game better.
Thank you.
I'd also like to commend this group. I know we're about to say goodbye, but thank you very much for not asking me questions about the 49ers pick at number 3. I am anticipating just like you all. I have no idea what's going to happen. I did tell John Lynch the other day, I don't think they can make a bad decision. All those choices up there are great. But like the rest of everybody, I'm just waiting to see what they do.
Thank you.
All right, Coach. Thanks for the time. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll send out audio and video here shortly. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.